about that,
Hi,
Gemma?
Sandy.
Oh, Sandy.
Hi, how's your virtual booth doing?
It's good.
It's really cool.
This is a really sneak peek of things to come. Yeah, they can't see all of that.
Oh.
They have no idea. We have another like extra studio space.
New side to our pretty cool.
Yeah.
When we're doing it, are we going to change up our background and put different things each day?
Yeah.
Oh, you guys are good. Sweet.
So,
Oh, sounds like fun.
you guys right now are getting a tiny little sneak peek of what our virtual booth is going to look like for Quilt Canada, which is happening June 16th to 19th. So, we're excited about that. Anne's got a foot demo for you today, which is going to be awesome. And I'm here to hang out and do announcements. What else do you want me to talk about?
Whatever you want to.
Squeak the chair a whole bunch. We should oil the chair. I know somebody who has oil at their desk. Announcements coming up. Monday we have Embroider on Anything with Adrian from Bernina, Canada, which will be awesome. End of next week we have Bernina Creative Studio. We've got Anne doing decorative stitch binding. And then I'm doing embroidering your quilts to finish them. So quilting in the hoop. And we are using Bernina's directions to teach both those classes, but the information will be relevant no matter what brand you have, because everybody's got feet and techniques that would be similar. So we'd love to have you guys in both those classes. They're really super affordable. They're on Zoom. Friday morning with us for 3 hours. And then you get the video afterwards. So if you're not quite ready to do those exercises yourself, you'll have access to the recorded class. So that's awesome. And coming up the week after that, like I said, Quilt Canada, June 16th to 19th. And we have got a virtual booth in the works. So we're going to do a couple different demos every day, all 4 days. We've got different demos every day for those 4 days. And I'm very excited. My great team, Dawn and Tyler, made magic happen behind me today. So there's a whole nother third display you can't see off to my left.
But they have to be CQA attendees.
Yeah, and to attend CQA, it's just a $10 registration. And then you get to go to see all the virtual booths and the virtual quilt show. What else do you get to do there? I don't remember.
Attend our live events.
Attend our live events. Oh, and you get to sneak peek other classes that we're running. So if you're curious about what Aunt Annie's looks like for our mystery quilt class, we'll be piping the feed in for that class, and the Bernina Creative Studio project class and the Bernina Creative Studio software class. We'll also have a little sneak peek option from our booth, because we have classes already planned, so we have to work around those in our virtual booth. It'll be good.
We got it.
We got it. The other really cool thing going on, we scheduled more classes and events. So we scheduled an not embroidery class. We're going to talk about the applique class first. Did you make gnomes?
Mm-hmm. I've got my gnomes in the store.
Yeah, we're having a gnome applique class. So Sandy announced it on Wednesday. We're doing that June 23rd and 30th, 1 to 4 both days, with the applique expert, Miss Ann Dale.
I just love applique.
Yeah.
And it was frustrating when I first learned how.
Mm-hmm.
Frustrating as all get out. So I spent a lifetime thesis on trying to figure out better applique.
Yeah. And all the staff samples I saw, they must have learned from you, because they're stellar.
Yeah, lots of times over the years, other teachers had me do their samples.
Cool.
And I've been paid to applique custom-made curtains, and that was a big job because there's miles and miles of curtains.
Yeah.
But we had a designer in the city who had asked around to some of her typical seamstresses, and they're like, the only person that could do that for you is Anne. And I declined to do the job, and then she threw enough money at it, it was worthwhile doing.
So yeah.
Never promise your client that they can have whatever they want. till you have things in place.
Right.
Just
That's
a tip.
That's a good policy. Yeah, so the gnome applique class, when you register for that, you'll get your choice of a tea towel kit or a wall hanging kit with the cute little gnomes. There's an optional thread kit you can add on. You can call to register, and because it's being done on Zoom and we're recording, if Wednesday afternoons don't work for you, still sign up for the class to get all the great instruction, but you can watch it later. So I think that's a great deal.
It's going to be fun. I'll have to make another one, so because we're doing it live.
Right?
First round's live, so.
Yeah, it'll be good. Other things coming up, the Brother Welcome Home event in July. So that's for our Luminaire owners or Luminaire want to be owners.
It was pretty exciting, actually. Making the samples for that was really fun.
Yeah.
I got to do things on my Luminaire that I knew it could do. I just never
Sat down
used
and
it
did.
for. And so it's kind of fun getting reunited with the all the little techniques that people buy their Luminaire for
Yeah.
that they forget are in there. So a little reminder
Yeah.
for me and other owners.
Right?
Neil. Yes, Neil, I had my nails done.
Ooh.
I'll share them with you in the close-ups.
Yep, so that's coming up. We also scheduled Kimberbell Day at the Fair for July 28th based on the votes from our email poll and our Facebook poll. We're looking for a date still for another Summer Nights run because there was enough interest to do that as well. But I haven't looked at the calendar that closely yet.
Yeah, Day at the Fair is a super cute event.
Yeah.
And a lot of the comments from the people who had already done both of them, if they were going to do a second one, they would come do Day at the Fair again because it was quite different, the projects and some of the others we've been doing. So that's quite nice. If you've done a lot of Kimberbell events but haven't done that one, it's just a bit different, and the projects are super cute.
Yeah, and it's,
As are all Kimberbell things.
right, and it's just a one day class, so
Yeah.
pretty easy to slide that into your summer.
Yeah.
You need a break. You
Why
need a
not?
break from all the sunshine.
Why
You'll-
not?
You'll need an indoor day,
Hang with
so
us.
you don't have a sunburn like me. I'm a little sunburned.
Do you have another one?
It's still just the back of my legs from forgetting to
Gosh.
sunscreen that when I'm gardening. I don't know what my problem is. I remember my face and my neck and all those places.
You're the grown-up. You're the mom.
I
You
know.
gotta set a good example.
I know. I cover my kids head to toe, but apparently the back of my legs are something I don't think about. So.
That's why we don't have French fries for breakfast. We're supposed to set good examples.
Right? Yeah. So those are some of the things coming up. The other thing, if you're not aware of it, we're doing a sewing machine giveaway at the end of the summer.
Right? That one's kind of cool.
Yeah. So the way we're also doing weekly draws, and the weekly this started on Tuesday this week, so June 1st. So our first week runs Tuesday to Monday. All the weeks will run Tuesday to Monday. So all the sales we get that qualify, which is $50 before tax and shipping in the online store, you'll get entered. And then we're doing a weekly draw. So our first weekly draw will be next Friday. So we'll get to give stuff away on Fridays.
Yay.
Like you and me. It'll be fun. I think it'll be fun.
Wait a minute. I might be paying for this. Not so fun for me.
Oh, no.
It'll be fun for you.
Brothers pitching in too.
Yeah, Brother's been awesome to sponsor this, and
Yeah.
the grand prize is a really sweet sewing machine. So totally worth placing your orders from the safety and comfort of your own home. You're welcome to pick up, have it delivered, do curbside, whatever makes you happy and comfortable.
Yeah, and I was thinking yesterday, if you know you need thread and needles, put those in your shopping cart,
Order them online.
and then come in and look at fun fabric that you need
Yeah.
to fondle in person.
Yeah, some things are more difficult, absolutely online, but basics, replacement blades,
Yeah.
the basics.
You need a jar of starch.
Black thread's black thread, guys.
Yeah.
What kind do you want? Cotton, rayon, polyester, blends,
Yeah.
embroidery, sewing,
All
those
those-
stuff. Yeah, throw those in your cart.
So I think that's most of my announcements.
Okay.
What are you demoing today?
We're going to do that number 86 Ruffler Foot. So,
Sweet.
Leah, my darling, why do we have so many? Look, I got one. I got two. You got two?
I've
What
got
the
two.
heck?
Why is there so many Ruffler feet?
The good news is if you're not sure, there's a really good little piece of paper that tells you whether you want the one with the red dot on the box, the one with the yellow dot on the box, or the other box entirely.
And our lovely staff members up front will probably be double checking what model of machine you have when you ask for one
Hey, and guess where current pricing can be found?
online.
Good call.
So I'm pretty sure Ruffler feet are over $50 and they're on sale for 25%
Yeah.
off.
So the reason that we've picked the 86, which is out of sync with the numerical version of the feet that we were doing, is because it is the foot of the month, and we thought we'd try to get that in early at the month. So rather than the week
Last
before, last month's was the end of the week, and so this one's early on in the month. The Ruffler Foot is one of my all-time favorites. Leah had a look at mine the other day, and she said it looked well used.
It is well used.
I used to have a clothing business, and I ruffled miles and miles and miles and miles and miles and miles and more miles of stuff. So I'm going to run you through some of the basics. If you want to check out the basic instructions, Bernina has a little booklet. Don't print it.
It comes in the box.
Yeah.
It's
It's got all the languages. Don't print it, because it will only print like thus. And the words will only be this big. But I printed that so you could see it on the close-up on the camera.
Yeah.
But the basic instructions is what I'm going to give you today.
sure.
You going to stay for a bit?
No, I might go work on other things.
Okay. All right.
Unless it's more fun to have you stay, watch you sew.
Yeah. Yeah.
I could stay and watch you sew. I'm gonna learn all the tips and tricks.
Oh, hey Adrian, nice to see you. Lots of people there. Lots of people to watch me, so I don't know.
I don't know. I could be your hands in this shot, and then Neil can't see your fingernails.
No, Neil's waiting for them.
Oh, well, then I need to get out of the way. So I'm gonna say have a great weekend, everybody. Watch the expert ruffle away,
Yeah.
and we'll see you guys next week sometime.
Yeah, Adrian, needle hits. Thanks, Leah. You're welcome. See you in a bit. Alrighty. Let's switch over here. So we've got quite a few bits and pieces already ruffled that I'll give you a little idea of what I would recommend. And what you can't really see on camera with this one is I've written on it, and this was a test piece, and I'll walk you through these on the machine. So Ruffler, every one stitch, 2.5 stitch length. That's what that's telling us right there. Oh, there's so many ways to put a ruffle on. We can put a ruffle on top of a piece of fabric, kind of like this. It's just catching along the bitter edge there, but it's a big ruffle with the ruffling up the middle. We've got a little ruffle here and a seam allowance. When you flip that up, you've got a ruffle on the hem of something. So we'll go through those basics and we'll talk about attaching it. So the first thing I want you to do, if you're going to do these test strips, grab something light that you can see just to get familiar with this, and then you're going to put notes with a Sharpie marker. What stitch length you're going to use. I'm going to use a 3.5 today. I'm going to use a Ruffler on 12. Yeah, that'll make sense in a second. All right. So I'm good, but I can't write upside down. So Ruffler, stitch length 3.5, 12 stitch. What's that mean? Well, let's take a look over here and I'll show you what it means. All right, first you've got to attach this. Just back up a little bit there so you're not, it's not all knuckles. We'll take this foot off first. I don't have a knee lift. I think I'm gonna die. All right, so here's our ruffler. And I'm using the Bernina one because that's the ruffler I own. Brother makes a lovely one as well. You can find them for almost every machine out there. They used to come in the box when you bought a treadle machine. So there's the part that will attach up there, but then we've got this arm that needs to be attached as well. And I find it really easy to just get on. You kind of swing in from 2 o'clock position. But, what's going on the top here? So, hopefully our video zooms in. I've got this little part up here, and this has a 1 on it. This has a 6 on it. This one has a 12 on it, and this one has 0. And so I wrote 12 on my ruffle strip. And you know, we talk often about there's those of us who test and those of us who wish we had. Ruffler will require testing. There is no definitive sheet of information that will tell you where and how to set everything. I'm just going to slide this in, oops, to the foot here. I'm going to start below that writing so that that's still visible. And remember I said I was going to have a stitch length 3.5, so I'll set that on this machine. And then we're just going to stitch. Let's just see. Well, Leah did say I may have worn mine out. All right, taking it off. Recalculation. It's not stitching. Let's talk about the parts first. So that part up here, as I was saying, that dictates to how often the pleater will take a little pleat. Every stitch, every 6 stitch, 12, every 12th stitch. This is every single one, and you can kind of see it's quite dense. And on this one as well, my information is written in there. Stitch length of 1. As I did this one, I changed the stitch length as I went down. So started with 2.5 for stitch length and ended with a 1. And as you can see hiding in the ruffles, I changed the length of the stitches because everything kind of matters here. This little screw here changes the amount of pleat that the foot will take. This changes the amount of pleats it will take per stitch, every 6th stitch, every 12th stitch, or not at all. And there's a walking gizmo here. This is the blade, and it looks a lot like this one, but it sits on top. You can see it sliding together there. Ruffles aren't for everyone or for everything, but certainly they're fun to have. And if you're going to do miles and miles and miles like I used to, you want the right tool for the job. So, as Leah said in the box, the little booklet is in there. If you'd like to read it before you purchase a foot, you can find it on the Bernina website. So let's just have a look here. All right. So let's see if this one's gonna be just a little happier than my poor old broken one. All right. May have just bought a new ruffler. I'm gonna put it on the every 12th stitch. Get you guys nice and tight so you get a decent view. I grab my sample fabric. And I would suggest that if you switch fabric, right now I'm just using Kona. If you're gonna ruffle wool or silk or linen, you'll need to run another test. This is just Kona cotton. I'm going to make sure that I have the fabric between those two blades. So every 12th stitch, we're going to get a pleat. The other thing, if you have a speed control on your machine, such as this, you want to be way down. You'll get a much nicer job if you give the machine's time to do its job. And if you go too fast, it's not as accurate. It gets kind of messy and you lose control of how you hold the fabric. I'll just swing back a bit. So I keep my fabric very gently in my hands, because any pullback and you're going to be wrestling the machine for that pleat. So if I was hanging on at all, when that did its pleat, it would be very unhappy. And you would get perhaps a more shallow pleat or no pleat at all. So here's our first run. 3.5 stitch length, every 12 stitch. So if you're counting along, you can see if it's true. Now, when you're trying to decide how deep to ruffle, how many ruffles, this is why you do need to run the test. So I know that I'm at the end of that piece. You can see those are quite far apart at a stitch length of 3.5. So just there. And those are approximately 1.25 inches apart. Quite nice. But you'll have to do a little math and find out what the ratio of gathering was. So if you measure flat, something easily worked with, 10 inches, 20 inches, number like that. And then you pleat it and you'll find out what size it is now. That'll give you the ratio, so over time and space you'll know how big to cut your ruffles. Often I see in the books they tell you just to cut way more ruffle than you need and to go and cut off what you don't need. That might not be possible. That might be kind of expensive depending on what you're sewing with. So as another test for you, we'll change nothing except the little lever here, and we'll do a pleat every 6 stitches. Have a look and see what that looks like. Start off slow, don't go too fast. Make sure you've got everything lined up and in hand. Remember not to hold your fabric too heavily because it won't pleat. You want to make sure you have free flow. And again, slow down. Not everything needs to be done in a hurry. And, you know, I've done some math. It takes 3 times as long to remove something as it did to put it in. So unpicking this, if it took 10 minutes to put it in, it'll take 30 minutes to unpick it at the very least. You'll be able to see these pieces are the exact same size to start with. So you can see those are quite a bit tighter. And if I measure that out on the ruler, they are about 5/8 of an inch apart. So from the fold of that ruffle to the fold of that ruffle, about 5/8 of an inch. So you can see that's quite a bit more ruffle than that original piece. So let me get to the end of that, because you know I'm making these gorgeous samples, so I may as well put them in a book for posterity. This back in school, we used to do sample books, make them, how to put in a zipper, how to do different things. So I got kind of to the end of that there. I don't want to accidentally pleat into nothingness. So pulled that off. And then, of course, I'm sure that Neil, he's smart. He's going to know exactly where I'm heading now. But Adrian does too. I'm going to ruffle on every single stitch and slide that in. Another tip I have for you is if you're trying to put this in and it's not where you want it, don't pull back towards you. There's some little teeth on those blades that will catch and grab, and you don't want that to happen. So there's little metal teeth on these, on the little pleater part and on here. Let's see if I can pull that back. You might be able to see if I can get the focus right. Yeah, there's some teeth here. So pulling your fabric out the other way doesn't really work because it gets caught up. So if you've got it in there and you're too far, pull it out the back and go in again from the front. So now, way more work. This is going to pleat every single stitch. And you don't want to do this too fast. It's really easy to lose control and not have nice stitching all in about the same area. Because, you know, once we get these ruffles done, we want to be able to stitch them into something. So you can see that went much faster. And the piece is super small. But look at that. Isn't that lovely? So very full ruffle compared to the other two. Some of the things that you can do is you can create your ruffle. I'm putting this piece of fabric right under the foot. I'm going to put the foot down for a second to hold it in place. So say that's the hem of my garment, and then this would be my ruffle. So to get that in there, I might need to lift the foot again, work that in. Sometimes the beginning won't be lovely. So if you needed a 40-inch run of ruffle, make sure that you're going to end up with 42 or 44 inches of ruffle, so you have some extra to work with. And oh, maybe I'm going to switch to every 6. Won't be quite as bunchy. So the little mechanism counts. And then pleats every 6th stitch. So I could do that again. Let's do on 12 and have a look to see what that might look like. We'll do a little wee bit of every stitch, just so we can have a visual. So as you can see, you're going to need a lot more fabric to make the ruffle than you do for the final bit of skirt. Okay, I'm going to call that done. Give you a better view. Move all my fun toys. So here we go. Got that flat piece of fabric under there. It's still flat. The piece we had on top, the ruffle part. This is where I had set up for every stitch and then changed my mind to every 6, to every 12th, back to every single one. Now, if that was a ruffle on the end of an item, a tea towel, a skirt, often I press the seam allowance towards the flat. And to make everything hold and land really nicely, I will sometimes go in and do a nice top stitch along here to keep it nice and flat. You can press those in. They're more pleat when they're further apart. They look more ruffled as when they're closer together. So it looks a little more ruffled here, and certainly more pleat here. And you can even press those flat. I've seen some projects where they press those quite flat. So a couple little samples there. Let's have a look at these maybe all together. So here's every single stitch. It curls a little bit. So there's our every single stitch. I'll put it at the end of the frame there. Every 12th stitch. And every 6 stitches. So quite a bit of difference in how much fabric it takes from each one of these. I find that stitch length can make a difference. The weight of fabric can make a difference. How gently you hold your fabric will determine whether these turn out nice and even. If you panic or your fabric gets caught and you pinch or pull on it at all, the pleats won't be evenly deep. That will change. Remember, the depth of pleat, that's based on the screw on the side. Here, when it's sitting on your machine, it's right at the front actually. Now, some of these things to know, I wish someone would write the definitive book of Ruffler. Maybe I'll do that in my spare time. You see all these little ins and outs. Let's see. Those are all guides. If any of you own a featherweight and you have the booklet, there was instructions on using these guides to put ruffles, attach a ruffle to, say, bias binding or a piece of ribbon so that you could attach it to a dress or a blouse or a table runner. There we go. So it looks complicated, but it's super simple once you get the gist of what all the bits and pieces are for. I love mine, and as I said, I've kind of used it a lot and may have worn it out. But it's an essential tool in my sewing room, certainly. So the other thing, I've shown all of these ruffled up on an edge here, where we could now take these and take a piece of other fabric and you know, right sides together and sew a seam like that. If you're confident and you're feeling it, you could do it as one step in the ruffler. Maybe you're not feeling it and it's easier to take it as 2 pieces and sew it later. Absolutely. Sometimes you might want to ruffle up the middle, and maybe you take a piece of ribbon and top stitch it to cover that stitch up. Maybe like this one, where maybe it's high on this side, maybe the same on this side, maybe short on this side and long on this side. And you can attach it onto the top of a finished garment. Maybe your little girl who loves ruffles her pants are a little short and you need to add a little bit to the bottom. You can add a sweet ruffle. It'd be super cute. Now I have a tip for you. When you want to do a ruffle that has a finished edge, like this one, it's double layers of fabric. I've seen instructions where they say to take your fabric and, you know, fold it in half and run it through the ruffler like this. I find that that does not ruffle evenly. So what I've done is I've just gone ahead and stitched this together. Just a straight stitch at a 1/4 inch from the top. It keeps these two pieces of fabric in a more determined, more absolute way. Because if the two pieces, if the two edges are separate, what I find is over time and space, one slides and then you get a crazy twist in there. So let's take a look at what that looks like in the machine. So I've already top stitched that, so those two pieces are together. Let's do every 6 stitch. It's a nice compromise. So I take the 2 raw edges, the ruffle's finished bottom is on the fold. Insert that into my ruffler. And we can use one of this guide here to keep us equidistant all the way along. Like I said, not too fast, but this is sure fast compared to the way we used to stitch a ruffle and then pull and hope nothing breaks. There's other guides down here, a little deeper. So I'm going to switch guides. And it's a little more intense for the little pleater to push 2 pieces of fabric through. So you might find that on a single piece, your pleats were deeper than they are on the double. So I just did up in the seam allowance there. But if you take, it's a little hard to see on camera, but I can see that the pleats are just not quite as deep as they were on a single piece. So that's something to keep in mind. The ratio on a single piece is not the same as a double piece. And so you'd have to do a new test. So sorry. So remember, the pleats were quite deep. They're not as deep on the double layer. And this is Kona as well, just black. But that little pleat is just not quite as deep as it was on a single layer. So some interesting little tidbits that I would need you to know. I hope that once you kind of get a feel for this, you can see that depending on what you've got going on in your sewing room, this could be the accessory for you. And certainly for the month of June, there's % off on that. For current pricing, check our web store. And then do be sure that you order the correct one. Now remember, if you order these online, you'll be entered into the draw. And the price of the foot, like Leah said, is certainly more than $50. So the purchase of a Ruffler Foot will get you an entry into the Summer of Sewing draw. And who knows, you might be the lucky winner of that sewing machine. So, looks complicated, super simple. There's a little spring here, that little spring. There's a spare in the box. If it pops off, breaks, there's another one. See, this is the little cog that's counting for us. I love it. I was very intimidated, 40 years ago when I got my first one of these. Not as intimidated anymore. And I would love to see what you're ruffling. So if you're doing some stuff, please post. Remember that screw on it's the side here, but when you've got the foot on the machine, it's right at the front. This determines the depth of the pleat. So again, you'll need to test. Do you want to pleat every stitch, every 6th stitch, every 12th stitch, or do you need to just sew 2 pieces together? You can run them through under the foot on the 0. And all of these little guides will help and hold things in place so that you can sew a nice straight pleat. And your friend, the speed control. Some of us like to maniac it, and our happiest foot position is to the floor. That's okay as long as you're over here and not up here. Alrighty. Well, I think let's call that a wrap. Let's go find somewhere nice to hang out with a breeze. Maybe your back garden, maybe a patio somewhere. And we'll see you guys all again next week. Take care.